$80,000, people. We are at 81,000, pretty much 500 right now on the Bitcoin chart. Pretty exciting stuff. Definitely exciting for those who decided to buy some Bitcoin in the past, which is probably everybody in this group. So let's take a look at a couple things real quick. It is a Sunday night. We'll keep it a little brief. Weekends are pretty crazy because there's really not as much volume. And because there's not as much volume, really, I mean, you could see a lot of craziness happen. So last week, presidential election, there was a rate drop by the Fed, and that pretty much gave everybody permission to say, let's go. Let's start, kind of bidding these things up because everybody knows we're going to have to basically start printing money at some point. Quantitative easing is a reality that will most likely come in the future. We'll see. I've got some theories on that as well. But for right now, definitely want to kind of take a look at a couple of different things and see where we're at. Right now, risk assets in general have been bullish because of those things, because of, like I said, the election, the rate drops, and then also just momentum. Everything is pretty much up. But with the stock market being closed on the weekends, you really see a lot of push obviously in the crypto market. So in my opinion, really a lot of this kind of buying pressure is because there's nowhere else to put the money at the moment. And I'll kind of walk you over to the SPX here in a second. But the biggest thing I want to talk about on this chart is we are no longer in a kind of in a range, right? We've been in this range since, good Lord, February 24th. So most of this year, right? Up, down, up, down, up, down. You buy it down here, you sell it up here, you buy it down here, you sell it up here, kind of a thing. We've now broken out of that. And so for somebody like me, I'm not interested in shorting anything. I'm not interested in trying to play the downside here. I'm waiting for dips to happen. And when the dips happen, I buy the dip. We've broken out. And as I discussed in really my previous videos or posts, kind of once you break out, you really roll over, you tap support. You got to come back down, test this support. And then once you test this support, there's nothing in the markets that are stopping it, according to the structure that you see here, technically anyway, that's stopping it from going up outside of what the orange lines are. And the orange lines were simply the support levels and resistance levels. So we had to break through this resistance, number one. Obviously, this guy did it. But we went down, we came down, we tested support. And unless there's open interest up here, which there actually technically was, I'll show you. And it kind of depends on which exchange it's on. It will go up. Now, obviously, all these things kind of converge at the exact same second. But if I was to really stretch this out, what's really weird is this was our high right here, right? If I hover over this candle, let me try to get both on here. If I hover over this guy up here, it'll show you the high. The H is the high, and that's 73,624. Whereas this guy is 73.8. So it's a little bit higher, which means there was a little open interest still technically available for the market to chase. So once it retraced down and tested support, which, as I said in other videos, like it literally just depends on the way down. I was looking, we really needed to kind of hold this support. If we didn't hold this one, we were probably going to come down to the $60,000 range. Well, I guess there's the $65,000 range first. But anyway, the point is came down, tested, and then it took off. Obviously, huge, just busting through that, filling that open interest, and then it's been on a tear ever since, which is great. But what do we know about big, runs like this? They're unstable, right? So if you go over to a weekly chart, here's your week, folks. Like, pretty big candle. We haven't seen a candle that big in a long time, right? Over here, last year, basically. Also, what's interesting is we definitely saw, it's only 10 days into the month. But the other thing is we definitely saw kind of up and down through here, but all of this buying pressure up through here on the monthly chart, right? The M is the 1 month. And then this candle kind of being above this was another reason when we said it came back down that this is probably the low. We probably aren't going much lower than this. And I think I said 56 was probably like the lowest that I would expect it to go. So now here we are, we're breaking out, we're going up. And the question is, where do we go from here? Personally, I think it looks like we're about to make a new high. Did we make it? I guess so. So if I go down to the 1 hour chart, which is a little overkill for these conversations, we are officially at the high. Every single person in the world who's ever bought Bitcoin, except for the last couple of seconds, is in profit. And it's also the last couple of seconds because they paid fees. But that's just absolutely amazing, man. That's super, super exciting. So really, where does it go from here? Well, as I said in my post, if we kind of go to a 4 hour side of things, it is Sunday. So I'm expecting that Monday morning, about 2 a.m. Mountain time, 3 a.m. Central time is I think when the stock market extended hours open. And we might see a little traction, but really it's more like 5, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. maybe. My time, between 5 and 7 a.m. The market's open 7:30 a.m. my time. So in between there is really where we start to see a little bit of adjustment. But things will just kind of keep running. Like if it's a bunch of buyers, cool. There's just no sellers on the weekends, and not as many sellers. And so I'm expecting a little bit of a reversal. I don't know if we're going to make it all the way to $85,000 or not, but between 80, 85, that was kind of my guess anyway, as far as where we might stop. And it really is just a guess. What I'm looking for now is, again, a retest. Much like we came up to here and we retested here, we've taken off. We're pretty unstable. What do I want to see? I definitely want to see a retrace. Probably down to 73. We could get down to this little bit more of the, let me make it a little bigger. We could get down to a little bit more to the bodies down here, like the 72 range, and we could retest the bottom of that range, 71.6. So anywhere between, like, probably right here, what is it, 74.7? Between 74.7 and 71, whatever, 5, somewhere in this range, I'm expecting a retest. Now, the irony of this whole thing, and what's so dumb about it, is it doesn't really matter. You kind of just got to set your order and say, all right, I'm going to buy it at 71,000 if it ever gets down there. You kind of have to layer it in, right? Like, I still have orders. This is an interesting conversation. I still have orders at 49,000. Why? Because if we're ever going to sell off, we're going to go and retest this range, right? Like, let's say there was a really big, I don't know, news event or everybody selling off something, it's going to sell off at least to here. So I definitely, or like it could go down to here reasonably. If it's like a pandemic, like we could see, gosh, you never know. So I just leave those orders on there. But literally for now, it's going to keep going up until there's enough pressure to kind of keep it stable. We are kind of building a little bit of a kind of a moving channel right now. I just saw, let me see if I can draw it while we're talking. I'd want to actually start down here, and I think these might connect. Yeah. So, oops, wrong way. So let's just like draw it there. It doesn't really matter for now. But this is what I'm wanting to see if it's gonna form a channel or not. So in this trend, we want to see, where's the trend going? Do we find any kind of confluence in here that could help maybe guide us? This is secondary confirmation for me, but it is a little interesting that this and this happen to be on the same line. We're hitting it again here. We're hitting it again here. We're hitting it again here. So this could be a breakout. We retest here and go up. Or this could simply be a deviation because it is a weekend, which is probably more likely the scenario at this moment. And we're going to sell back off, and we're going to need to go down and retest the bottom of the channel. Maybe not here, but either way, you could see how, look at that, that's 69,000, which also would be not a crazy place to retest. I just don't think it's as likely with as many buyers at this point. That's a pretty big drop. If we go from kind of roughly what the top is down here, it's 15%. That's really not actually that shocking in the Bitcoin space. And for the next year, we will see that. We will see things just going a 20-30% move can be the week, you know what I mean? Which is kind of crazy. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking for that. And then let me see, what else did I want to talk about? There were some liquidations in here. I won't go into the liquidations, but I do think that's going to be probably a pullback from the highs. I could be wrong. It could go all the way to 100,000 before it pulls back. Again, I think that's less likely. I think there will be more news. Like, for example, in December, we've got some jobs reports coming out. We've got another interest rate decision. We've got a couple of macroeconomic type of things that are really going to be coming out that could definitely be some variables to what's going on in the economy. And those things will tell us, a little bit more about what could happen. So we could see a blast off before we come back. What's absolutely nuts is between right now and let's say next year it takes off and goes to 200 or 300 or 400 or 100,000, whatever, we could be back at 75,000, as crazy as that sounds, as the support. So much like we saw a big takeoff here, we came back down and we retested what range? We retested really a lot of what this was. Our previous high of 20,000 back in 2017 became the low in this market cycle. So we could see that again where it runs up, which is really hard to think about, but could run up like crazy. Selling takes profit and all that kind of stuff, and then it sells off, and then a year after that in 2026 or whatever, or 2027, maybe we're back down here in the $70,000 to $80,000 range. I mean, it's just the bananas of this market. So you just never really know what's going to happen. But as of right now, the probabilities are kind of leaning towards, hey, there's probably going to be a little bit of a stability check here this week. We'll do a little check and then we take off. Now, what's crazy is a lot of times you have a false move at the beginning of the week and then a run in the end of the week. And so we could literally see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday sell off down to one of these yellow lines. It clicks here and then immediately just goes boom right back up and creates a big wick like this, which would be a lot of buying pressure and would be really cool. The best part of this whole thing, in my opinion, literally is the fact that we are talking about $80,000 Bitcoin and it's still 2024, right? The way that the cycles work, I'm still predicting it's going to be the backside of 2025, much like a lot of these other charts that I've marked up and showed you in the past, like this BLX chart right here. This is not the marked up one. Bummer. That's okay. I've walked through that in several videos before. So we'll see what happens there. At the end of the day, if it dips, people who are going to be traders, they've got cash sitting on the side, they're buying these dips. That's what's going to happen. I'm not interested, like I said, in shorting anything. I'm just waiting on some pullbacks to actually happen. The two other things that I really think are valuable of talking about, and another reason a pullback is the most likely, is, what happened here? I moved this guy. Dang, I wonder where I moved him from. Well, that's a bummer. This is the futures chart. I've showed this a dozen times or more, but these were all gaps in the futures. So basically the weekends, right? Since it's open on the weekends, there's no price action, no candles on the weekend. So sometimes it creates gaps. Am I in some sort of weird? There we go. I was in some sort of weird setting. I don't even know what this one is. Adjust for contract changes. But why would that be on here? That's a weird setting. I must have clicked something to set that up. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, we are back. So all of these gaps have been filled, like the untested market over the weekends has been filled, except for this one down here, which I'd been talking about like it's a magnet. And I was expecting this to pull down. Obviously, once it didn't pull down, it's like, all right, we're obviously going up. Well, guess what? Over the weekend here, we've got a pretty big gap in the futures contracts. And what does that mean? That means that it's going to want to try to retest that area. It's even more so because it was multiple green candles in a row. Then you have the gap. Then you have another green candle. So that's 80,000 and this is 77,000. So at a bare minimum, what I'm looking for is all this liquidity right here is most likely to be addressed, but this for sure, right? We're going to see someday this week a red candle, most likely. It'll pull back and it could go to 85 and then it could pull back, test the bottom of this range and then go up. It could definitely do that. I'm waiting, like personally, I really would like to see a little bit more of a pullback. I want it to basically go under some of this. Maybe the bottom of that wick, so 74.5 maybe is where I might be interested in starting a position. But this is the futures contracts, so they're only open Monday through Friday. Therefore, when they come in on Monday, they're gonna want this part of the charts to be tested. The other thing that I wanted to show you was the SPX. So this is the S&P 500. And the only thing about this that I think is interesting and looking at is simply some theory I was working on last week. So what's crazy is we literally tapped 6,000 if I was to scroll over this guy, and again, look up here where high is, what does it say? $6,012. So not only do we hit all-time highs, which again isn't surprising, basically money fled into the market after the elections, but I'm currently working on some thesis stuff right now. What is happening to my charts? This is absolutely bananas. I don't know why there's so many conflicting things, everybody. I apologize. We're just going to keep trying to rock with it. Let me go to a monthly view just to get a little bit more in here, and I'll explain what all this writing is up here. I'm trying to chart out some trends, right? Some lines here. This goes back to 1929, which is a bad year, but you get the idea. Kind of started going up. Definitely obviously been parabolic ever since. I'm literally mapping out right now what some of these things were. Obviously 2001 dot-com bust, financial reset here in 2008. We had COVID, and you'll see 50% drop, 57% drop, 35% drop. We just hit all-time highs, and guess what else we just hit? We also happen to just hit, and again, all these lines kind of converge between here and COVID, right? Which this is a big monetary push since 1971, basically down in here somewhere. And then it's just going to go absolutely insane. And has been obviously our entire lives. But when you come up here, obviously we're trying to predict what does the drop look like, right? It's not coming down here. That's not very likely. No one is going to want that, and basically no politician's ever going to let that happen. It's never going to get through the House and the Senate. We'll just raise the debt ceiling, we'll print more money, and this won't be a problem anymore. We'll have more up and to the right. So 35% drop off. This was all the money printing from COVID, and then we had our sell-off basically from the COVID highs, which is about 27%. So 27%, 35%. So it's really not that crazy, 30% drop. We happen to tag the top of this. 6,000 is also a round number. And so I'm just trying to show highs in general. I'm expecting some selling before the year is out. On top of that, in later December, you have selling due to tax loss harvesting. And so people are selling things so that they can basically write it off on their taxes. Although I don't think there's going to be too much of that unless they're in smaller assets, because I mean, just look at what's happened to the S&P this year. I mean, I don't know where your losses would be. You know what I mean? But here we are at $6,000. So hypothetically, if we were to hit a 30% loss or drawdown, we probably go down to this white line of 41.73. What's interesting is that also happens to be support here for this and for this. I think the more likely support's actually going to be right in here. It's going to test this level. So I don't think it'll be that big of a drop. It'll, 15, 20%. Actually, I guess we could measure that. And this is pure. This is about as speculation as you can get, because it hasn't even turned around yet. So that's a 20%. So it depends on how high up it goes. What I'm looking for with a candle right here is on a daily chart, I want to see a big wick. I don't have anything to show it. On a weekly chart, I would like to see similar, and a crazy thing would be if it starts selling off and I get a monthly candle to look like the reverse of this. A big wick to the top is really what I'm talking about. It'll just be interesting. So anyway, this is just something I'm kind of working on, but basically everything is risk on right now. And it's just a matter of when things are going to stop running. The other part of this, just for funsies, I'll kind of show you is, it's in 2000. So what's crazy is I just noticed this when I was mapping it out. So literally in 2000, if you bought it the first day of the year 2000, so just this century, you bought it the first day and you wrote it out. You went crashing down in 2001, went crazy high when they were basically letting all this lending happening. Then we had the financial reset. Then it came back up. You were at break even 12 years later. It as crazy as this sounds, all this up and down, it sounds like we've had a lot happen, but we really haven't. It's just gone sideways for 12 years. And that's pretty incredible to me, because for somebody who lived through this, especially being an adult during this time period, or I would say for most of this time period, it didn't feel that way by any means. It didn't feel like we were going sideways at all. It felt like absolute chaos here. And this felt really cool. Like, hey, the country's turning around, blah, blah, blah. Same thing here. Like, man, we're really pulling ourselves out of this. Nah, man, nothing's happening. And so that's where zooming out brings a lot of perspective. And it kind of allows us to see what might happen here. And that relates us over to Bitcoin, because I think Bitcoin is a little bit different because there is a fixed supply. They can't just print their money and solve these problems. In fact, if they print money, this is just going to see more and more green candles. Yes, we're going to experience some drops. In fact, some of the videos I'd like to make early next year are going to be mapping out what a bull run looks like, this right here, and what some of these drops look like. Because as you can see, I mean, this is from here to here, it's running, right? But throughout this time period, hey, wait a minute, that's a 28, 29% drop. Hey, what about this guy? Holy cow, that's another 25% drop. So, I mean, you definitely feel a little bit more of the roller coaster. 20 to 30% historically has been the big drops from Bitcoin, but for now, we'll leave it where it is. Again, just something exciting. At the end of the day, I don't get too excited about the price of Bitcoin yet, because I'm excited about the price of Bitcoin in 10 years, in 20 years, to see what that looks like. So for right now, we're going to play this game. We're going to play these market cycles. And next year is going to be, again, statistically a very big year, and we'll take some profits, and I'll share my ideas and opinions along the way, and we'll kind of go from there. So excited to be on the journey with you. Hope you're doing well. Don't sell your Bitcoin if you plan on hanging in there for at least another year, which is what I'm gonna do. Like I said, we're not in a range. We're trending now, so the trend is your friend. We're gonna see what this looks like. These runs up, pull back, run up, pull back. I think the next big stop's 100 grand. So let's kind of see when that's going to happen and play it from there. Chat soon.